You know that feeling, that specific kind of stress
Oh, I know it.
where your brain is just a web browser with 100 tabs open?
And something's playing music, but you can't find the tab.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you try to click on anything and you just get the spinning wheel of death.
I think that's just the default state for most of us now.
Yeah.
We call it being busy, but really it's just mental gridlock.
Right. And my first instinct when I hit that wall is always to just, push harder, stare at the screen, grit my teeth.
The stare and strain method.
Yeah, and wait for my brain to just force a solution out. But all
Yeah.
the research we looked at for today says that's actually part of the problem.
It is.
So today we're doing a deep dive into a solution that feels almost, I don't know, dangerously low tech. We're talking about thinking on paper.
It sounds a little quaint, doesn't it?
It does.
Like we're going to tell you to buy an ice fountain pen and light a candle. But, I mean, when you dig into the productivity frameworks, the psychology, even how AI models are trained to reason, you realize this is a genuine power tool.
And that's really the mission for this deep dive. We want to get past this idea of just taking notes for a grocery list or, meeting minutes. We want to see how externalizing your thoughts turns that foggy internal noise into actual actionable intelligence.
The core shift here, and you see this everywhere from creative guys like the artist's way to like CEO decision-making models, it's all about the intent.
The intent.
Yeah. Most of us write to record a thought we've already had. But the sources all argue you should be writing to generate thoughts you didn't even know you had.
There was a phrase from the reading that it really stuck with me. Think for clarity, not about clarity.
That's the whole thing right there. If you wait until you're clear on something to write it down, you've missed the entire point. You're using the tool way too late.
Okay, so let's push back on that for a second because, I like to think I can keep a few things in my head at once. Why is physically writing it down so much better than just thinking really hard in the shower? What's the mechanism?
It boils down to something called cognitive load theory. Your working memory, your brain's RAM, basically, is incredibly limited.
How limited?
The science suggests we can hold like 3 to 5 items in there at any given time.
Oh, wait, only 3 to 5? That feels really low.
It is. So if you're trying to solve a complex problem, say, should I move my family to a new city?
Right.
Just think of the variables: cost of living, the schools, leaving friends, new job market, the weather. That's way more than 5 things.
So if I'm trying to do that all in my head,
You're using 100% of your mental energy just to hold the data. You have no processing power left to actually compare the variables or see the connections.
you're just juggling.
You're just juggling. And eventually you drop a ball, pick it up, drop another one. That's the spinning wheel feeling. It's your RAM completely maxing out.
So the paper is like an external hard drive.
Exactly. Or external RAM.
Right.
The second you write cost of living is high on the paper, your brain can let go of it. It frees up that slot.
Oh.
Now you can look at that fact and compare it to, but the salary is higher. You can actually start processing because you're not wasting all your energy just holding on.
There's another thing the sources mention that feels kind of counterintuitive. They talk about the slowness of writing being a good thing.
This is huge. Writing by hand is just excruciatingly slow compared to how fast we think. We think at, something like 4,000 words per minute? It's a torrent of ideas.
But we only write at maybe 30 or 40. That sounds like a bottleneck. Why is that a good thing?
Because it's a strategic bottleneck. One of the sources pointed out that this slowness forces you to make your thinking linear.
Okay.
When you're just thinking, you can jump over massive logical gaps. You can hold 2 ideas that completely contradict each other and not even notice.
Oh, yeah. Like, I want to save more money and I really want to buy a new car can live happily together in my head until I look at my bank statement.
Exactly. But you can't write a sentence as total nonsense. The structure of language forces structure onto your thoughts. The paper makes you slow down just enough to actually get some leverage on the problem.
I've had that happen. I'll be ranting about something in my head, and it feels completely justified. Then I try to write it down in a journal, and I stop mid-sentence and think, wait, that's actually not true. This is nonsense.
That moment, that right there, that's the whole value proposition. You found the bug in your own code because you had to actually display it on the screen.
Which brings us to this idea of the sandbox. Because if you're going to expose your own bad logic, you need a safe place to do it.
Right. And this is where people get tripped up. We're conditioned by school to see writing as a performance. You write an essay for a grade. You write an email to get a result.
Oh.
It has to be polished.
The editor mindset?
Yes. But thinking on paper means you have to kick the editor out of the room. The paper is a sandbox. It's supposed to be messy and chaotic. If you're worrying about your handwriting or stopping to fix a spelling mistake, you've already broken the flow.
You're back in performance mode.
Exactly. The sources call this separating the creator from the editor. They say writer's block, or just being stuck in general, happens because you're trying to do both jobs at the same time.
We're trying to have a brilliant idea and critique it in the same instant.
Which is impossible. It's like trying to drive with the parking brake on. You have to let the creator just run wild and make a mess first. Then, and only then, do you invite the editor in to help clean up.
Okay, so we've got the why. It offloads our cognitive RAM. It forces logical thinking. But let's get tactical. When do I actually do this?
There's a brilliant little rule for this in the source material. It's called the 1-minute rule.
I loved this. It's so simple, so binary.
It just cuts through all the indecision. The rule is this. If you are stuck or puzzled or indecisive about anything for more than 1 minute,
Anything,
you have to switch to thinking on paper.
1 minute is a really short leash. I mean, I can spend 20 minutes staring at a food delivery app.
And that's exactly why the rule is so powerful. Think about the last time you were staring at a tough email, not sure how to reply. You write a sentence in your head, then you delete it, you worry about the tone.
That's the loop.
That loop is just draining your battery. The rule says 60 seconds. If you haven't solved it by then, more mental gymnastics won't help. Grab a pen.
It stops you from just ruminating.
Instantly. And it applies to everything. Big questions like, should I fire this client?
Yeah.
All the way down to tiny things like, okay, I have a free hour. What's the best thing to do?
I actually tried this yesterday. I was completely overwhelmed by my to-do list, where you're so busy you do nothing.
Oh, yeah. Analysis paralysis.
So I caught myself, realized I'd been staring for 5 minutes, and I just grabbed a sticky note, wrote down the 3 things stressing me out, and the moment they were on the paper, the answer of which one to do first was just obvious.
It's amazing how often that happens. But there's a barrier there, isn't there? The perfectionism. You grabbed a sticky note, which is low stakes, but some people feel like it needs to be, profound in a leather-bound notebook.
Right. I need to write something insightful about my career.
And you'll never start. The goal is just raw output. If you have to write, I feel dumb and I want a sandwich, that's a perfectly valid starting point. Just keep the ink flowing.
Keep the ink flowing. That's the rule.
Quantity over quality, at least at first. You're just flushing the system.
So the trigger is the 1-minute rule. Let's talk about the toolkit then, because the sources gave us specific modes of thinking for different problems.
Right. You need the right tool for the job. You wouldn't use a hammer on a screw.
Let's start with mode 1, free writing. The brain dump. This seems to be for that general feeling of overwhelm.
This is what's known as morning pages, from Julia Cameron's The Artist's Way. The technique is very specific. You write continuously for a set amount of time, say 10 to 15 minutes or 3 pages.
And continuously means literally not lifting the pen.
You don't stop. If you run out of things to say, you literally write, I don't know what to write. This is a stupid exercise, over and over until a new thought pops up.
What's the psychological reason for that? Forcing the filler.
It's about bypassing your internal censor, the little voice that says, that's a dumb idea, or don't be so negative. By writing faster than that voice can critique, you access thoughts that are normally suppressed.
It's like clearing the cache on your browser.
That's a perfect analogy. You're clearing out all the mental clutter, the small anxieties, the petty stuff, so you can get to the real signal underneath. It's mental hygiene.
Okay, so that's for clearing things out. But what if I have a structural problem? Like, I'm trying to design a project and see how the parts connect. Free writing feels too linear for that.
That's when you switch to mode 2, visual mapping.
Mind maps. I feel like I haven't done one of these since I was a kid.
They're so powerful because our brains think associatively, not in straight lines. When you make a normal list, 1, 2, 3, you're forcing a hierarchy that might not be real.
Right. Item 1 might actually be caused by item 10.
Exactly. And a list hides that connection. A mind map, where you start with the problem in the middle and branch out, lets you see things spatially. You might realize, oh, budget cuts is right next to marketing delays on the page. They're connected.
You'd never see that in a list.
Never. There was a great practical tip in one of the sources for this. Use large paper.
Yes. Don't try to mind map your life on a Post-it note. It sounds silly, but a physical constraint becomes a mental one.
It's so true. If you run out of room on the page, your brain just kind of decides, well, I guess that's all the ideas.
Yeah.
Give your thoughts physical space to expand.
Okay, free writing for the gunk. Visual mapping for connections. What's mode 3?
Mode 3 is for when you need rigor. When you know you're deluding yourself or you're stuck in a loop, that's for dialectical or structured thinking.
And this is where that two-column technique comes in.
It's so powerful. You just draw a line down the middle of the page. The classic one is facts versus stories.
Oh, I've used this. Because I'll have a thought like, my boss hates my presentation, and that feels like a hard fact.
But it's a story, right?
Yeah.
The fact in column A is, my boss didn't ask any questions. The story you tell yourself in column B is, therefore she hated it and I'm getting fired.
And seeing them side by side it immediately deflates the emotion.
It pops the balloon. You're putting two ideas into a conversation with each other. You can do problem versus solution, worst case versus best case.
Yeah.
It forces you to see multiple angles.
The sources also mention question storming here.
Yes, we're all obsessed with finding answers, but a lot of the time we're asking the wrong question. So instead of answers, you just list 20 questions about the problem.
Like, what am I missing? Or what's the opposite view?
Why is this even a problem?
Yeah.
It's like the 5 whys method. On paper, you can force yourself to go deeper instead of getting distracted after the second why.
So we have the trigger and the toolkit. What about the environment? I feel like I can't do this with my phone buzzing in a loud coffee shop.
No, the environment is key. The sources all emphasize a distraction-free zone.
Which means closing the laptop.
Ideally. We touched on this, but there's a real consensus that analog pen and paper is better for the generative phase. Digital is better for organizing later.
Because of the friction and the focus.
And you can't open a new browser tab on a piece of paper. You can't get a notification from a notebook. It forces you to monotask.
But let's be real, I can't search my handwriting. If I come up with a business plan in a notebook, it's not very shareable.
And that's why the hybrid approach is probably the best. Start on paper for the messy creative part. Then, once you've found the insight, move it to a digital tool to structure it and share it.
That transition, moving from paper to digital, that actually leads to the last and maybe most critical step, the one everyone apparently skips.
The review.
Yes, the review.
One source called it the two-step process. Step 1 is capture the messy brain dump. Step 2 is review and refine.
I am 100% guilty of skipping this. I'll write my morning pages, I'll feel better, and then I'll just close the book and never look at it again.
And for just venting, that's fine. But if you're trying to solve a problem, you have to go back and, mine for the gold.
What does that look like? Am I just rereading it?
You're interacting with it. Take a different colored pen, circle key themes, draw arrows between ideas on different pages, look for the actionable intelligence.
So you might have 3 pages of complaining, but buried in there is the actual solution.
That's where the order comes from.
Okay.
Chaos. If you don't review, it was just a nice chat with yourself. If you review, it becomes a strategy.
Okay, let's try to wrap this up. For the listener who is right now staring at that spinning wheel in their brain.
Let's do it.
Step 1 is just awareness. Recognize you're in a loop.
And use the 1-minute rule. Don't try to be a hero. If you're stuck for 60 seconds, grab a pen.
Step 2, choose your tool. If you're just overwhelmed, free write. Get it out.
If you need to see the big picture, use a visual map. Get out of that linear list.
And if you need a reality check, use structured thinking. The 2 columns. Facts versus stories.
And finally, the crucial part review. Go back, find the insights, and turn them into actual tasks you can do.
The biggest takeaway for me was that we need to stop seeing writing as a product. We're not all trying to write a novel. It's a process.
It's a process of self-discovery.
Yeah.
You don't really know what you think about something until you see it written down outside of yourself. Inside your head, it's just a feeling. On paper, it becomes data, and you can analyze data.
On paper, it's data. I love that. That's going on my monitor.
There was one last thing from the sources, a bit of a gut punch about taking action.
Okay, hit me.
It makes a distinction between planning and worrying. It poses this question you should ask yourself. If you didn't write it down, did you actually think it through, or did you just worry about it for 20 minutes?
Oof. Yeah, that's a powerful question.
Because we mistake worrying for thinking all the time. Worrying is circular. Thinking moves forward. Paper forces you to move forward.
Well, on that note, I have about 17 mental tabs I need to go close right now. I think I'm going to go find a notebook.
Enjoy the quiet.
Thanks for walking us through this. And for everyone listening, try the 1-minute rule just once today. See what happens. We'll catch you on the next deep dive.